Thank you for coming to my session on practical guidance for AI and collaboration adoption. My name is Karuana Gatimu. I'm the Director of Customer Advocacy for AI collaboration at Microsoft. And I have the pleasure of running things like adoption at Microsoftcom and our Microsoft tech community. We work with customers and partners every day who are driving not only AI adoption, but also of our core Microsoft 365 collaboration tools. I'm going to talk about this. I'm using CoPilot as an example, but I'm also going to sprinkle in conversation about our kind of pre-AI, if you will, collaboration tools at Microsoft Teams and SharePoint and OneDrive. Because the truth is those things are very important to have healthy adoption for as we think about how we're going to change business processes going forward. I should note that on that prior slide, that QR code would take you to my LinkedIn page where you can connect with me and stay up to date on all things CoPilot adoption, community events, and technical skilling. That is pretty much what you will get on my feed on LinkedIn. I'd always start with the resource slides first because this is the moment when I actually have your attention before that's what we'll put it at the end. I like to put it at the beginning. These two locations are very important. The community learning channel on YouTube is where we publish all of our session content and skilling. And what's fantastic is we publish there our community calls. And in those community calls, you have members of the community, non-Microsoft people doing demonstrations of new tech, new tools, programs that they've done, things that they've built. It's fantastic. After this show, we'll also be releasing some of the interviews we've done with all of you and with Microsoft leadership. So please do go and subscribe to the community learning channel. And then, the pace of change is kind of crazy. And Heather Cook and myself actually was thinking about how am I going to keep up to date on everything that's happening right now. And I knew that if I couldn't do it inside Microsoft, that probably customers were having some difficulty. So we have a live news broadcast every other Monday morning that we stream on LinkedIn and YouTube as well, called Mondays at Microsoft. And we cover AI and modern work, Power Platform, data, and we go through all of the blog posts, all of the roadmaps, all of the big rocks and things that Microsoft is talking about, and distill it down to that 30-minute show. Probably the most valuable thing about it is you can't join us at 8 a.m. on Pacific time for the live show is the fact that we post that blog with all those links. So you can watch it on demand. You have all the links. We've done that footwork for you. So definitely go and check out Mondays at Microsoft so that you can stay up to date on everything that's going on. All right, I am going to hop in. Most of everything I'm showing you today has some relevance or relationship to the CoPilot Success Kit. Now, I'm going to be talking about collaboration tools as well, but the CoPilot Success Kit and everything that we've done around adoption implementation for CoPilot is important because we've rewritten all of these tools for the era of AI. Right, so we had a Microsoft 365 implementation framework before CoPilot was released. That was also a project that I worked on for a really long time. But when we started to learn about CoPilot and we understood what was going to happen, we knew that we needed to change it and simplify it, make it easier for people to understand. And I'm showing this not to drain every bullet on this slide, but to actually show you the large purple boxes at the top, which are the 4 phases of implementation. And you could be implementing pretty much any technology in your organization. Maybe you're reintroducing Microsoft Teams. Maybe you're rolling out a new time and materials tool, a new HR tool, or what have you. But this implementation framework is very portable depending upon the different types of technology you're doing. Getting ready, onboarding, engaging with your business users, delivering impact, making sure things are working the way that you expect and the way that you share with your leadership, and then extending and optimizing your implementation. So there's 2 components to doing a CoPilot implementation, the user enablement or the human change work stream, and on the bottom there, the technical readiness work stream. I will tell you that this is a personal slide, as a personal victory of mine. Not only because I get to chair the group of folks who manage the framework, but because never before CoPilot had the human change and user enablement part been on the same slide with the technical readiness part. And in my work with customers all around the globe, I'll tell you one thing that is a sure indication of problems in your technology rollout is when the user experience people aren't talking to the technical team. right? And the technical team isn't talking to the user experience people, right? Some of us sit in ITD as user experience people. I certainly did when I worked in Microsoft IT, but a lot of folks, sometimes that's a separate department. Now, there's also situations where you're in a smaller organization and you're actually doing both. Right? And that is really difficult, but that's very common. I certainly see that in small to medium business, in some government entities, things of that nature. So, but this is the kind of the essential things that have to be done in an implementation, but I'm going to make it even simpler as you go through this conversation and get down to the absolute essentials. All of this information you can find on the CoPilot Hub and Scenario Library. So how many of you in this room have visited adoption.microsoft.com? Oh, you make my heart warm. That's awesome. I was actually at this conference 8 years ago, that I announced the very first version of adoption.microsoft.com. And at that point, it was kind of like a late tree. It was a collection of links going to 16 or 17 different places where Microsoft's adoption content lived. We have now consolidated all that in this single website, and there's information, of course, for CoPilot, but also for the new version of Teams, for SharePoint, for OneDrive, for all of the other tools that you might be interested in, including things like CoPilot Studio. We have a new security enablement page. So really, it's an important website for Microsoft, and you'll notice the pattern. There's adoption.microsoft.com, support.microsoft.com, learn.microsoft.com. That's pretty much how we name all of our tier 1 websites. We call this AMC internally. On AMC, what we do is we curate content from all those other sites to bring it into one place. And we haven't all the way through Microsoft 365 yet. We obviously started this kind of strategy a while ago, but we rewrote it for CoPilot. But now over the summer, we're going to launch this kind of microsite for Teams, for SharePoint, for OneDrive, for lists, and more. Right? So we have, like for instance, lists adoption material lives up on this site, but we haven't aggregated everything across the ecosystem yet. So please do bookmark adoption@microsoft.com. And if you are working on CoPilot, or when you intend to do that later, this is going to be your site to find everything you need, both on the technical readiness, leadership, and adoption side, which, by the way, are the 3 kind of pillars of any one of these projects. The other thing that's important about this site is that there are news and community events that happen on a pretty regular basis. There are these large conferences like this, but there are also local skilling events and virtual events, customer hub sessions, and more additional training that you can send your people to, or that you can attend yourself, and you'll find that all on this site. So let's break it down. I have 5 essentials of adoption. And the reason that I have 5 essentials, I have my beautiful, very complicated slide that you just saw a minute ago. In some organizations, that's actually too much, and it makes people feel as if it's an overwhelming amount to climb to implement something like CoPilot or any other enterprise scale collaboration tool. But at the end of the day, there are 5 essential things that I see in common with every successful organization, large or small, that does this work, that implements a new technology capability. And again, of course, we're constantly talking about AI right now, because AI is a fundamental change to the way that people work, as opposed to the cloud, which is a fundamental change to where data is stored, where services are delivered from. A lot of people don't need to care about that, but people do need to care about AI. And these 5 essentials, again, are a common element that I've seen, no matter what the industry. So we're going to go through these. We've got this having a business strategy. You would be surprised how few organizations have taken the template that I published for a user enablement strategy and actually completed it. You would be surprised how many organizations don't have an actual technology business strategy written down anywhere. Right? And so that leads to a lot of decision-making confusion and problems in prioritization and all of these difficulties that happen. Right? The other thing, and I mentioned it earlier in relation to this slide, but cross-discipline teams are winners, where IT and business and user experience specialists all work together. Those are the organizations that develop agility and have clear return on their investment and are constantly doing great work. I will say it probably till the day I finally retire, or maybe even past that. Email is not a communications plan. Sending an email from IT that somebody got a license deployed is not a user enablement communications plan. It's just not. It doesn't work. No one reads it. They don't know why it matters. And they probably have a rule in their inbox that moves all those emails to a folder that they go to once a month, if you're lucky, okay? If you want to engage with humans, yes, you have one of those, right? Yeah, so do I, actually. If you want to engage with people, you got to remember they're people, right? And think about in a day how many things are trying to vie for your attention. Managers and customers and, advertisements and brands and TikTok and Twitter and social and you know what I mean? Like there's just so many things. Your attention is your most precious gift. So you have to earn it with people. You have to earn people's attention, right? And you have to think about that when you're communicating with them. Challenge is natural. If you have an expectation that your adoption program or your rollout is going to go without a hitch, that's not really a realistic expectation. What's more important is how you deal with those challenges, right? I always tell folks, when I came to Microsoft, or I started in Microsoft IT, and I wanted to work in product engineering. I'm a business solution architect by trade, even though I don't have a computer science degree. I have hands-on keyboard, learn, come up with SharePoint, that sort of thing. And I love building stuff, right? And I'm a pretty good product manager. But what happened was I was working in IT when we did our first launch, our global launch of Microsoft Teams as product in preview. There was this big event in New York, and then we were all in Redmond in this big war room, and it was me and all of the product people who actually were already in Teams engineering. I was the only IT person in that room because I was responsible for it to light up inside Microsoft. And it's a very stressful day. Like everybody's stressed out. You've got a bunch of people going on in New York, and we're all up. We've been there since 5 a.m. And they pulled they flipped the switch and they turned it on. And the only person who had a problem in that room was me. Because our internal authentication system fell over because of the instantaneous demand. And I had said 3 weeks before, should we add some more servers? Should we add some more capacity? This is going to be a really big deal. Like all these systems are going to get hit at the same time. And the guy, who shall remain nameless, was like, that'll be fine. Nobody cares that much. I was like, okay, fine. Not my system, right? Okay, fine. So there I am in front of all of those people, the only one managing a live incident while everyone is watching me, right? And the truth is, I kept my sense of humor. I got the problem handled. I was able to communicate when the corporate vice president walked in and said, how come they can't log in? I didn't freak out. And it was after that they actually offered me a job in Teams engineering, right? And they asked me to come and work for them and run support for the new product, right? So sometimes challenges and how you handle them can actually be a good thing if you can handle it in such a way that it builds confidence, right? That you as a leader can handle difficulty. Because there's a lot of people in the world who can't handle difficulty, especially difficulty under executive glare. But it is going to happen during your process at some point. The tech will fail, the communication will fail, the expectations will be mismatched, like whatever it is, right? So challenging this process is natural. And the reason I'm so good at handling challenge is because I have a team of people, of champions, and a community to support me. Now, in that moment, yes, I was alone in the room, right? But what I knew for sure is that there was lots of people who I could call for assistance. And there were people who understood what I was trying to accomplish. And champions and community are not optional when you are rolling out new services today, and especially with regard to AI. Because there's no way that I can get up here and teach you everything you need to know about prompting and how to use CoPilot in your environment. Why? Because I'm not you. I don't have your job. AI is a personal experience. It's a personal productivity and transformation tool. People need to do it themselves, and then they need to have a conversation about it to learn from each other. It's one of the reasons why in all of these implementations, we tell people in prior days when you got a proof of concept or some test licenses to test out in your organization, you put a few in each department, right? And then you got feedback to see if it was worthwhile or not. That does not work with CoPilot. We have tested it. We have seen it since the beginning, and from all these cutting-edge companies, didn't work. You have to actually gather people together. If you get 20 licenses, for instance, in your organization, put them all in sales or put them all in support. Of course, you have to have a couple in IT, but I'm saying the majority of them, even one department, or a departments that work together constantly, right? So the people know each other, because then they're going to start playing with it, and then they're going to start talking. Right? And that is what is actually going to make the return on investment. This is a process of human change management, right? We have to put the people first at the center of these strategies so that we actually yield those business results. This also means that you, whether you are a team leader or you lead an organization or company, maybe you're a CEO, maybe you're a department head, or you're talking to the department leaders in your organization, you have to change the way you think about leading the team. And so we've created these resources for you to help you evolve your leadership style. AK.MS, LDAI, Leading in the Era of AI. And we'll continue to publish essays and articles. There's information out there about creating a strategy roadmap, about creating an AI council, about how to really position the technology, how to think about this differently. Because you hear a lot of people talk about, productivity gains with AI, and that's great. But what really matters is how are you going to grow your business, right? How are you going to expand what you're trying to do in your company with AI and with Microsoft 365? Because you made a significant investment in the services that you deliver. Before AI ever showed up, you were already like a Microsoft 365 customer with E3 or E5 licenses, like whatever. Even if you're a business premium user, because you're a small business, that's a significant investment. You need to get the most out of that. And then you add CoPilot to that and AI capabilities to that. And how is that going to help your business strategy? So thinking different as a team manager, as a leader, as a person in IT is very important right now. How many of you, by the way, sit in IT or something similar in your organizations? Okay, awesome, great. And how many of you are from the business or sit in a department outside of IT? Okay, kind of half and half, a little 60-40 there. One of the things I always talk about in this too is, we were in the process of kind of modernizing IT to be viewed not as a cost center, but as a strategic business asset. And then the pandemic came. And that process kind of got stopped in its tracks because we all started talking about remote meetings and hybrid delivery and teams. We didn't really get to finish with branding ourselves as anything but a cost center. And so we've also had some challenges in IT with shrinking resources and what have you. And so now is the time where you can go back and start talking to your business leaders about the fact that this technology that you all are bringing to the table is going to be a differentiator for your leaders. They need to see you in that light. I'll talk more about that in my closing keynote in a little bit, but these resources on this page will help you. We're continuing to publish things there. I will say one thing about creating an AI council. Some of the stuff that we publish is very much targeted for large organizations, right? If you're a smaller or medium-sized business, and anything under, a couple thousand users, maybe even under 5, that your version of an AI council might just be the executive leaders in your organization and you talking about how technology is going to help the business. In organizations I work with that are global multinationals, that are in financial services or healthcare, it's a much more formal process. And it's even more formal than that when I work with governmental agencies. It doesn't have to be super formal for it to be important. So take what we publish and right size it for your business. Right? We're going to write for the most complex cases in many cases, and then you can just take the parts of that will work for you in your culture and in your environment. We do have new SMB resources, though, specifically for CoPilot that we've rewritten to make them simpler and more relevant to a small and medium business. So we've done that. But in these particular resources, there's kind of one version. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, also this goes to evolving your business strategy. So let's say 2 years ago you had a strategy of gathering 3% more of the market share for whatever industry you're in, and you wanted to make sure that customers got issues resolved within 24 hours. I'm just making that up. Now you can really be even more aggressive about that, because you can service new customers much more quickly with CoPilot connected to your CRM system, for instance. You can resolve complaints more easily by really using collaboration tools and chatbots on your website and Teams channels to handle customer service scenarios. There's so many ways that small, medium business and enterprises can bring this all to the table. Well, what you have to do here, the purpose of this AI council, is to prioritize the use cases that will be most valuable first. For organizations I go and talk to that have a problem with support, like people aren't getting their questions answered fast enough or the tickets stay open too long, obviously we start there. Right? For people who really need to grow revenue or the top line of their business, then we start there. Like, Microsoft can't answer that for you, but your leadership in your company should be able to. And if you're sitting in IT and you don't know what the biggest problems in your company are, I highly suggest you find out, because that is how you make yourself very relevant to your leaders. Right? You want to be relevant to them, and they need to see you as a strategic asset. This is an example of number 2, really having these cross-disciplinary teams for the win. And again, this is kind of a model for a larger organization, but you can see up here on the far side of the slide, you have an AI council, and they're prioritizing what you need to do. And maybe the most important thing you can do is actually have people really understand the power of channels in Microsoft Teams, so the support people and salespeople can talk about open incidents together. Right, in Microsoft, that's how we do it. If there's an incident with one of our services, there's actually a bot that kicks off the incident in a database and then creates a channel for that incident. And when that issue is closed, that channel is archived. Right? That's a workflow that's very common in a lot of organizations. What it does is, if I'm an incident manager, I know exactly where to go for the update. I know where to go to talk to people. We have a similar process with our Teams Emergency Operations Center that is for managing actual emergencies. To improving communications in times of difficulty is an unbelievably worthwhile activity for collaboration tools. And we saw this, I had the pleasure of leading the team's COVID response team at the beginning of the pandemic. And I will tell you, it's not because it was that close to my job. I'm actually really good at running very large meetings, and I built our Teams and SharePoint site to bring all the data and information together. You'd think inside Microsoft anybody could do that, but newsflash, we're just like any other company. Right? Not everybody does collaboration tools inside Microsoft, so I actually knew how to use M365 for all of that, right? And it really helped us. So having those sorts of scenarios is important. Then you have to have an executive sponsor, right? An executive sponsor who is going to, here we go, this one right here. An executive sponsor who is going to be the face of this transformation, who's going to speak to everybody about why it's important, who is going to provide air cover if there are problems, right? Who is that person, and are you engaging with it? Then there's a user enablement leader. Usually the user enablement leader and the core IT services leaders are two different people in very large organizations, but I find a lot of times in places there was same human, you know, the global admin and the user experience person were the same person. That is really stressful. Can I just say that right now, that's really, really difficult to have the skill set to do both of those things. So if you do, kudos to you. Come see me, because there's only a few of us in the world who can do that. The point is, just know that if you feel like it's stressful, you're right, because it is, right? But anyway, even if you don't have separate people, in some places what they've done is there's a core IT team that are the full-time employees in the organization, but the user enablement they had outsourced to a partner, a Microsoft partner, a consulting firm to do that work. That's okay for a kickoff, but it can be problematic long-term. So just think about that. All of these people work with the business. So that's like your head of HR, your head of marketing, your head of sales. Those people were actually responsible for a business unit, right? And then you have this work that happens. And in many organizations, the most powerful people that you can recruit and maintain are these local champions. And you can call them collaboration champions, you can call them AI champions if you're ready for that. Some people brand that program individually because it goes with something that you already have, that makes sense. But having those people, the reason that the local is important is because a local champion understands what's happening in that department. Right? I'm going to get better feedback and better help from a champion that sits in the sales department about sales issues than I am from somebody who sits in legal. Right? So it's really important to have these champions and to develop champions that are in the departments that are rolling out the technology. Right? And at least have one. You definitely need one. Remember I said they're not optional anymore. Right? And so this shared infrastructure, the shared team structure, again, you can move it around kind of any way you want that works in your particular size of organization, but having that is important. And one of the things that we're trying to do here is all of this information, as I mentioned, is in the Success Kit, but it's kind of the real world implementation. Right? You can read through the Success Kit, of course, but having kind of the knowing where the landmines are. Right? We've done had the opportunity to be around a lot of CoPilot implementations and a lot of Teams and collaboration implementations. So, a lot of this information that I share with you is please don't make these mistakes. Save yourself the time and difficulty. When you go on to adoption.microsoft.com, you hit this CoPilot Hub in the scenario library. We just re-envisioned it for our Wave 2 release, which was April 23rd. We're releasing some new capabilities, a researcher, an analyst, and a frontier testing program. If you scroll down the page and you take a look at the Success Kit, we've broken up some of these tools, again, basically for IT pros or for user enablement. And this is the user experience strategy guide that I was mentioning, right? It's a Word template. Go take a look, write one up. What is the priority? If there are salespeople in your organization, what is the collaboration experience you want them to have on a good day? I hope they know where customer information is, they know where documents and templates are, they can reach their HR and management services when they need them, and they can quickly resolve customer issues and get scopes of work and bids down the door quickly. That's usually what people want in sales department. But defining that, right? Because maybe in your organization, the top priority is not Microsoft 365, the CoPilot, but instead a well-oiled CRM system for those particular salespeople. If you've got customer data all over your organization, that's not going to be good when you do get to AI capabilities. So you have to take a look at what's really happening in your business and in your technology stack. And the way to do that is to use that template and think about the important roles in your organization and how you enable them. Like when I do healthcare work, for instance, right? Reducing the time it takes for practitioners, for doctors and nurse practitioners to write up notes after a case is a huge thing because it gives them more time for patient care. And at least in the United States, time for patient care is a big metric and a source of a lot of difficulty and dissatisfaction in the United States healthcare system because practitioners don't spend enough time with their patients. And they don't spend that time because they have an awful lot of other side work to do, right? So in that scenario, I can go ahead and do some implementations with a lot of N365 to solve that problem. So this document here will give you the ability to have those conversations with your leaders and organize your thoughts, right, about what's important. Now remember number 3 was email is not a communications campaign. I hope you remember that because it's really important for those of us with rules that send those emails off other places. What we've done is we built a kit of these. This is not the first user engagement kit we built. We have them for Teams. We're going to be releasing one for SharePoint. And some of the new capabilities we had there, and of course we have them for CoPilot. And this gives you a whole set of things that are like campaign documents. And you could take PowerPoint presentations and pre-formatted emails and use these themes to run like a social campaign in your organization. right? To get information in front of people, you have to keep telling them. The reason that email doesn't work, it's not that it's a bad thing, but the email doesn't work because if I tell you something once, you're really not going to remember. I need to get in front of you visually and in an auditory fashion and multiple times before you're really going to remember. Right? Everybody learns differently. So some people can read an email and understand it. Other people need a quick video. Other people just need a graphic that they can get in their mind. Different learning modalities need to be brought along this journey differently. And so that's an important thing. So use our tools and let them be inspiration for the other projects you need to do. I'm not under the illusion that CoPilot is the only thing in your world, right? It's a very important thing in your world. It's going to become even more important over the next 6 to 12 months. It is already changing the way everybody works, which is what's different about this one. Much like what we had to go through in a sense when we all went remote at the beginning of COVID, we all had to learn how to have Teams meetings. Like this is another fundamental change, but on every level, everything we touch. So use these engagement tools as inspiration for what other types of campaigns you might do. When I'm working, when I help partners do user engagement, like at a construction company, I'm going to have very different language than when I'm in healthcare or when I'm in a consulting or accounting firm. Right? So you have to tailor the marketing, if you will, to the user base that you have. And in some very large companies, how I talk to HR is not how I talk to the field repair technicians, if you will. Right? So you might have more than one campaign for the different user personas you have in your organization. That's good because that means you're putting people at the center of what you're doing. Right? And that's more important than any technology. What do people need? What are their difficulties? How can you solve their problem? Right? That's all anybody really wants to hear is about how you're going to help them. Right? They don't care about all the names of the different tools that Microsoft has. I'll tell you that right now. Nobody cares. And that's okay. They're not supposed to. That's my job, right? Everybody else needs to do their job. We just need to help them, as we like to say, get stuff done. Number 4, this is another one of these really important slides. You do a little time check here, yeah. That, sometimes I feel like doesn't get as much love as it should. So, again, this is something that we launched for CoPilot, but the user journey, super important to really keep in the center of your mind, right? People aren't logical creatures, in case you haven't noticed. They're not logical all the time. People are motivated by a variety of stimuli, right? Emotional, psychological, their particular ambition, their people industry, their socioeconomic standing. There's a good deal of driving adoption that has a need to be empathetic and understand people's psychology. And one of the models for that, the Think, Act, Feel framework. It's something that comes from our research group, but it predates us. We use this a lot. And actually in the full kit, I have the links out to the research papers and what have you. But the thing to remember is people have a perception of you and your technology, and it's going to make them feel a certain way. And when they think about something and it makes them feel a certain way, that's what's actually making them make a decision to act or to resist, right? And so understanding that model is important because the first thing you have to allow at them is what we like to call the wisdom. What's in it for me? What's in it for these people? And I can't say that enough in every single venue that I speak in. If we're not lending what the value to that particular business user or what we're trying to share with them, they are going to tune us out and move on with their day, right? Pretty rarely do you have a captive audience. Like right now, you're not actually a captive audience. You can leave at any time. But the most important thing is that I respect your time and your attention, and that I hope that this is helpful to you. This needs to be about you. This isn't about me as the speaker. Right? And the same thing is true when we're doing technology rollouts or working with business leaders to make it AI strategy or really helping people through change. So the first thing they think about is, why do I need to care about this? And then if you can get them to actually care for a second, they want to know how can they use it And if you really are taking them along a journey, then it's how will we use it, right? How will the people I work with use it? How will we use it together? I guess the first thing I had to learn, the first time I saw a generative AI tool was, oh, how am I going to use it? But immediately, within under a few days, I was like, what's this going to mean for my team? Just my own little team. I wasn't thinking about all of Microsoft. I wasn't thinking about the Globe. It was just when I first started using it. I'm like, okay, my team is going to be impacted by this. How are we going to use it, and what are other people going to do? Right? And then people want to know when, and then how does it change their experience? A part of this that a lot of us tend to forget is up here. How can I get help? Okay, I don't mean the support ticket in the IT department. I mean, how can I go talk to somebody that I know and I trust that maybe has a similar job to mine and actually, bounce ideas off them, right? And that's why the community is so important, right? Obviously, if there's a technical problem, then an IT ticket is fine. But even I'll use Microsoft as an example. There are a lot of people in Microsoft who don't open IT tickets. Yeah, they ping me. Hey, Karuana, how can I do such and such in Teams? Because, people know those in Teams. And I'm still a Teams champion, essentially, for people. All right? They'll come because I'm a trusted resource. Right? Instead of going to something else, they come to me. This is very true in what we're doing now with CoPilot. So you have to think about, because if somebody gets frustrated at this point in the workflow, in this part of their emotional journey, all we've done is inflame their tech trauma. Right? Most people in organizations have trauma from past tech rollouts because we promised them it was going to be awesome and it wasn't. Right? They have post-traumatic stress from the last time we said technology was going to make their life simpler. Right? And they bring that stress and those feelings to your rollout now. So if you want to address that and make sure that people are really clear about how they can talk to other users and get the support they need, they're going to be very cynical. When you really get somebody along this journey, how can I do more and what's next? Boy, that's when you start to build a real champion. All right? This is when people like you start to emerge. Right? Because you're the ones who are going to then go and tell somebody else about what you just learned and did. Right? You're going to help other people. And that is a rare kind of individual who is of service of that way and has also applied the skill. So when you sit down to talk with a leader, for instance, about AI or about what you learned at this conference, right? First, I'll think about what's in it for them. What do they really need? Really important lesson I learned at Microsoft. I was having at Microsoft every quarter, you meet with what they call your skip. So not my manager, but my manager's manager. And I met with this person, really, really brilliant guy, data scientist, product manager, just super, super smart. And I met with him, this is, a few years ago when I was still in Teams engineering. And, everybody goes in there and you want to impress your boss's boss, right? But I went in there, I didn't really need anything. I really did, but this time was important. So I said, what can I do for you? What do you need that I can be helpful with? Because I'm good. I'm doing fine. I love my job. I get recognized. Everything is fine. How can I help you? And something, he was speechless for a minute because no one had ever come into a meeting like that with him and asked what he needed. Because everybody goes into those meetings with an agenda. I want to show you my bright, shiny thing. I want you to see me. I want you to promote me. I want, right? Instead, I was like, what do you need? So I encourage you to change the dialogue you have with leaders in your organization. Find out what they need if you don't know. And also, it'll make them articulate it. Because it took him a minute to figure out what it was he needed. Like, he knew my skill set and what I'm great at, but he was like, oh, you mean, you could... I could see that his face, he didn't say this to his credit, but on his face was, you mean you'll help me? Really? That's what was on his face. Right? Yes, that's what I'm here for. You actually pay me to help you as well as help everyone else. Okay, so number 5, building that sustainable champions community. So obviously, I believe in champions. My team runs the Microsoft 365 Champion Program. We have for a very long time. It is now in the wonderful hands of Tiffany Lee and Jesse Wong. And we have monthly free calls, and we share all our slides, and we talk about everything that is happening both in CoPilot but also in other areas. But what you need is this kind of champions community inside your company. Now, depending on your size, again, maybe there's just 5 of you. Or maybe it's, I think at Microsoft, Stefan said that we have 7,000 people in our CoPilot Champions community, but there are 400,000 employees. Okay, so that you do the math on that, right? So that's why you're rare. If you're doing this IT adoption work and you're doing technology adoption, you're a rare individual and very, very valuable. There are not nearly enough people in the industry to fill all the jobs of this kind of work. Okay? So take the user experience course that's out on Microsoftcom, get the badge, put it on your LinkedIn, right? This is a talent that more and more people need. And, you know, I had an achievement unlocked moment the other day because Satya Nadella said the word adoption. You know, it is a thing now. Right? It is even more of a thing than it was before, and having these capabilities. So you want to build this community of people in your organization that can provide this kind of non-technical support in a way, but still have good acumen for the technology. And of course, we have templates for this. In Viva Engage, there's already a template that you can provision that allows you to run a community, but you might be wanting to do it in something else. So you might want to combine this with something you already had. So my advice to this particular talking is don't fragment your community. If you decide that you're going to be, or if you're actively in the process of rolling out AI, but you already had a community for Teams or for collaboration tools or wherever, think about rebranding it and keeping people where they are. Because people already know how to click and get to that community. They already know when your monthly call is going to be. They already know what's going on, right? And so it's very important that you not move everybody's cheese. You know, don't move all their experiences at the same time. People need some familiarity to go with the change, right? If you always talk about, if I never mention Teams or SharePoint or OneDrive, but that's what we've all been doing together for the last 25 years, it's disconcerting. Right? And you might not consciously recognize that, but certainly neurologically in the way that you learn, your body knows, your nervous system knows. You need to be able to connect what you already know to what's coming next. And this is true in your champions community. How many of you have an active champions program inside your company right now? Okay, excellent. The rest of you got to get busy. Find the person who's going to lead it. Another pro tip about running a champions program inside the community is it needs to be a team sport. If you're the only person running that thing, you need a vacation. You need a backup buddy, is what we call them. You need a team of people who are going to bring different perspectives and different topics to the table, right? You should be an organizing committee, whether it's a champions community inside or you run a local user group or whatever. Always, I've run several alone, and it's really hard. When I started the user group inside Microsoft, I did that by myself until I was able to recruit some more people to help, and it was really difficult. So make sure you have some friends to go along the way with you. But make sure that you are formally training those champions so that they can go out and help the people who are in your broader community, right? And give them the support that they need. I'll prioritize their feedback. Close their issues, right? Give your champions the additional time and attention that they need so that they can be your army. They can be your people out on the street helping your regular users in ways that you probably, that the tech support line is really not designed to do, right? When you open a ticket with IT, it's not, a therapy session. It's not let's redesign our workforce plan session, right? It's, I have a technical issue. This button on this thing doesn't work, or this thing says access denied, or I don't have permissions for food. That's tech support, as well it should be. Champions provide a very different function. So making sure they have the information they need, but also prioritizing their feedback and the feedback that they bring you from your user community, it makes all the difference in the success of this, all right? And this success, I would say that the number one differentiator between organizations who are implementing AI well and organizations whose projects are struggling is a champions community and their understanding of why these people are important. And so that is documentable in the data, in the active usage data. Because champions are usually pretty creative people too, so they'll run prompt-a-thon. They'll have a contest. They'll do, a weekly meetup. They'll have people, design a cupcake and designer and post your picture in the community, right? That sort of thing. That's the kind of stuff that really brings this knowledge home. And champions are always the ones who come together with the creative knowledge. This is an example, as I mentioned, at the CoPilot community, the out-of-the-box work. And, it gives you one of the cool things about AI in Inviv Engage is as we continue to build more features into it, it'll actually help you manage the community itself. All right, and it can identify issues that need answering, and it can help you write content for the community. It's really great. I happen to love the implementation of CoPilot in Inviv Engage because that kind of busy work of running a community takes a lot of time. And if you can make me more effective as a community manager, I can actually help our people, right? And also in any organizations, you only have one community manager, right? And maybe two, if you're lucky, for multiple communities. And so anything that we can do to help those folks get their information and provide better care is important. All right, we talked about the CoPilot Hub and the information before, but I also want to highlight our own community. There is a Microsoft 365 CoPilot community on the tech community. This is the direct link for it. However, what I'll tell you is that there are forums for everything out there. Microsoft Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint. I know I keep saying those product names, but a healthy CoPilot implementation, the precursor to that is healthy use of Microsoft 365. So if you are thinking about doing CoPilot, or you're in the middle of a CoPilot rollout, but people are still confused about Microsoft Teams, chats and channels, for instance, or they're not using channels and pinning tabs in there, right? Or if they don't understand how things are pinned on the left rail and they can move stuff around, really some of the basics of Teams, I highly encourage you to use our kit that's on adapts.microsoft.com for the Teams work as well. Right? And also, going back to my comment about bridging knowledge, it's really helpful in the middle of the AI conversation to throw in some stuff that is about things that they already know. People are familiar with the phrase Microsoft Teams and what it does. But what they don't know is that they don't know everything about how to work in that. Right? And so consequently, when you're teaching them that in fun ways and teaching them CoPilot, that really helps bring them along in a way that feels more comfortable to people. That people are somewhat resistant to all the change that we at Microsoft are landing in their world, and that there's so much change happening in the world at large, that people's nervous systems are literally overwhelmed. And when you're in that fight or flight mode, you can't learn. So our primary job is to get people to exhale and relax a little bit. That's all going to be okay. We got them, right? We're going to teach them how to manage all of this tech, and we're going to do it in a way that's kind of fun, and it allows them to be even more effective and bring their unique skill set to their work. Right? I do not in any way, shape, or believe that AI is going to replace us as human beings, but it does amplify the talents that we have. Right? But only if we use it. That's the whole purpose of technology. It doesn't do me any good that I bought my husband this really fancy coffee pot that he can program the night before to get coffee, if he never sets the time on the things. True story. True story. There is no coffee pot programming happening in my house. I thought it would be helpful, but it turns out what he really likes to do is get up and do it as part of his routine, right? Guess what? I didn't get any feedback for him before I bought that present for him. So I thought he wanted something that he didn't actually need, but he really does need some help with organizing all of the fishing supplies or whatever. So I helped him write a thing for that. You know what I mean? So it's like the technology has to fit the person, right? If we're constantly shoehorning in the automatic coffee pot that nobody wants to program, it's not useful. I challenge you, go home and look around at all the technology that maybe you aren't using in your home. And think about why. Think about why. It sounded like a good idea, but it wasn't really relevant. It never landed the whiff phone with you, right? There wasn't anything in it for you, right? So remember that we're people first, and our talents and our skills need to be amplified, and what we don't need is stuff we don't need. Right? And too often when technologists come in and talk to people, we talk about features before we talk about them. And that's why they don't trust us. Right? When we just go in and start talking about tech. Right? I was telling somebody the other night that, I change the way I speak depending on who I'm talking to. Right? If I'm talking to business users or leaders, I don't go in and rattle off a whole bunch of information about all the features and everything the tab will do. You can watch them glaze over. Right? They're not going to follow that conversation. That's not their gig. If I ask them what they need, and I shut up and listen to what they need, and then I actually respond to the questions that they've asked with shorter answers that are more precise, that is way more effective. Right? So that communications capability is so important as we go forward. This is a super exciting time. There is so much opportunity for us, especially in the adoption space. The data is clear that there's not enough of us who know how to do this kind of work, to merge technology with business value and human change management. It is an art form. You are all artists, right? And it doesn't matter what your background is or whether you sit in IT or not. If you're interested in this work and you want to add more value, there is a path for you. All of the resources in Microsoftcom, the communities that you land, you don't have to do this by yourself. You're part of a much bigger ecosystem of people, and we hope that you continue to be a part of it with us so that you can make this yours. This moment should be about you and your career and what you want to do next. I'm not going to, start my keynote speech now. Guess I hope you come to that. But really, I want you to really think about what do you want to be doing 6 months from now? Because I guarantee you we're going to continue to launch new CoPilot capabilities. Agents are going to be even more of a thing than they were before. And you maybe will feel a little more stressed about what is your unique value that you bring to the table. If you need language about your unique value, come and see me, because I will tell you what that unique value is. In no way, shape, or form is an agent going to replace me. It is going to make me way more effective. It is going to let me help more people. It is going to let me, it's going to augment the things that I'm not that great at, right? So it's going to make me better, but what I bring to the table is unique, and what all of you bring to the table is unique. So know that, right? We can all talk about the technology, but there's a human element here that is absolutely essential that can't be replaced. But we have to choose to make AI work for us in positive ways. Right? We have to choose, and it really is up to us. So that you will remember the 5 essentials of adoption. If I haven't published this as a blog post and a quick reference guide yet, I certainly going to. We were talking about this the other day about taking our simplified version of adoption project planning and making it even simpler still so that people can peel the layers as they need them. If you only need the first layer, these conversations, that's great. If you work in a really large organization, you're going to need a few layers of each one of these things, and then we can help with that. But it helps you just kind of choose your own adventure, right? Rather than having to go super deep in everything every minute. So yeah, does anybody have a question? Was any of this useful? Tell me if it was useful. Okay, awesome. Something this did me crazy. I need some audience feedback. Thank you very much. There's a question right here. Thank you. I will repeat the question too for the audience. And so his question is, I mentioned getting some certifications and credentials. Can I recommend some? So there's a couple. In the Microsoft world, we released several years ago something called the Adoption Specialist course on Microsoft Learn. And it has been updated into the User Enablement Specialist course on Learn. It's actually MS 4007, and you can search for it online or ping me and I'll tell you where it is. And that is a badge. It's not technically certification. It is a badge that you get for going through the Tier 1 training on user enablement. There is another more robust certification called the ProSci methodology, PROSCI. That is a theoretical change management methodology, which I very much like. It's very different from the M365 implementation was. So our M365 implementation framework and the user enablement course is very much how you do this for Microsoft. ProSci is more of the theory and psychological structure around driving human change. Right? They have something called an ADKAR method that is talking about attention, decision, awareness, knowledge. I've forgotten what the acronym stands for, but it's an excellent thing to do. So there's many practitioners for change management or human change that you'll see that are ProSci certified. Yeah. There's also local programs. Most every university, especially universities that have business programs, have classes on human change management as well. And if you take it really far, one of my colleagues that I work with all the time, Rishi Nikolai, has a PhD in behavioral science, right? And so he and I work together actually on the modern collaboration architecture. He's the author of that, and I, help. But yeah, he has that degree. So, I have a little bit of a background in psychology. I studied that in school. I studied theater, things of that nature. So I brought that to this work. And I have to say that the psychology work and studies that I did is incredibly helpful. And of course, I read a lot. So last thing I'll say is Harvard Business, what do they call it? The HBN. They have a Harvard Business has a blog, and they put out these summaries of different books. They have a change management section, and I read pretty much everything in the Harvard Business change management discipline section, and it's free. I mean, it's online. Really great stuff. Case studies, best practices, brilliant work that's coming out of there. At MS4007. Yeah, great question. Well, that's a great question. So her question is, how do you incentivize champions? With CoPilot, you give them the license, but what about all the other stuff? If they need incentivizing, then they're probably early adopters, not champions. Champions are motivated by helping people. And that's where they get their juice from, right? They call it the helper's high, actually. There's been a lot of study around the sense of meaning and value that I get from helping people is, way better than anything else. But I have a whole set of other people who what they're motivated by is testing new cool stuff and getting some swag. So you have to find the people who are the natural helpers versus those folks who want to be early adopters. They're both really valuable in the work we do, but they're not the same. Right? And usually also how I recognize actual champions is I let them tell their story. Give them a forum to share their feedback from the people that they're serving. What they hate more than anything, and this is my experience over the last 20 years now, they hate it when they've gotten a problem from a group of people and they can't help get it solved, or at least deliver the message where it belongs. Like, I really hate that. But I'm not just projecting. There was actual research on it. I do hate that. But yeah, so making sure that they have, in the user enablement, or actually in the implementation guide for CoPilot, there's a conversation about something called a service health review that IT teams and user enablement people should be doing monthly, but a lot of people do it quarterly. In those service health reviews, you're supposed to have leaders and IT and user enablement people and business. Let them tell their story in there about the 3 things they learned in their community. I give them visibility. It's a great way. And then I do give them t-shirts and food. Never underestimate the power of the cupcake. That is the secret sauce to my career. I bring cupcakes to almost everything. At least I really did. I made a joke about it, but when I started the user group inside Microsoft, there wasn't one, and I always brought food. And so people always came to my meetings because they could eat. And then I would tell them something, and they would eat some more. Yes, question over there. That's great. So his question is, in case you didn't hear, they had an existing Microsoft 365 Champions program. What's the scope? How do they rebrand it? That sort of thing. My first question is, what industry are you in? Healthcare. Okay. I'm not sure that having product branding is the thing I would do if I was back in that company. Right? So I used to work for Skechers, the shoe company, and they were a very creative company. And they didn't care again what things were called. And they, when I launched SharePoint there, I called it the Plaza. I had people go to the Plaza to find their forums and meet me in the Plaza to go do this meeting. And I made up a name because people liked, a bunch of those executives traveled a lot. And I happened to know that. And they like to go to countries that had plazas, like Europe or New England or something, right? So I named it that, and nobody really realized that it was SharePoint. I knew it was SharePoint. Some people knew, but it made it very popular. So I highly suggest running a contest, getting people who are creative. You need a new logo, make that one contest, come up with a name, and then do a logo contest. And then people like that kind of fun stuff. And if nobody does it, then you could talk to designer and have it make her new logo. You could ask CoPilot for a new name too, by the way. But having it have more heart is important, because something that will be very important going forward, especially as we start talking about agents nonstop, is authenticity, right? Being authentic matters a lot, right? And so think about it from that lens. Yeah, that's a great question. So the question is it too big if it's like how to use tech better as a scope? No, as long as you have a curriculum. A good deal of what I do as a champion community leader is curriculum design. What am I going to teach people when? If you get a new person right now, what are you going to teach them first? And then what are you going to teach them second? Like at your monthly meetings, it depends on how much attendance you get. Or if people, hopefully you have a site, that a SharePoint site, their champions community, there are resources on there, making playlists of things that people can learn because you're recording your meetings. So just think about the types of roles you have in your company and what people need to learn. You can absolutely do all of the tech, but you have to do it in order. And the most successful champions programs who have really good attendance publish their agendas of their meetings at least two months in advance. I never got that good, frankly, until I had a bigger team. When I was alone, I couldn't do it. Once I got the team, I got really good at it. But making sure give people expectations about what they're going to learn. And that helps you then, maybe you have, March is the month that people learn about during reporting. And, the next month they're learning how to have better meetings. Like you can make a whole theme of it. Yeah, absolutely. So it's not too much, no. The other piece of it is have your champions self-identify what area they want to be a champion of. So we have CoPilot champions. We still have Teams champions. And we have people there's some folks in our worldwide program that are all about Planner, right? They're all about Planner and to-do. That's and lists. That's the thing they're into. So let people opt into what they want to be a champion of and just bring them all together, give them a home. They just need a home. Yeah, great question. Any other? I could take one more thing. Oops, I'm a little over, but I'll take one more and then we'll wrap up. It really depends on your size. There's actually an example timeline slide in the CoPilot implementation guide. I think it's 90 days all up. I've seen people take months, and I've seen people do it in 30 days because they wanted to slam through it. But it's iterative. It's continuous improvement cycle. So you never actually get done in these things. You're constantly cycling through it. All right, well, I hope you all join our community, share your stories, tell us how you're doing. Thank you for listening to me today, and I will see you again very soon. Thank you.